everyone. Hope you're having a great day so far. My name is Sarah Fairclough, and I'm the Business Administrator for our Platform Solutions team here at SmartSimple. And today, Eric's going to be talking to you more about the Excel Parser.
Thanks, Sarah. Hi, everybody. It's Eric here again, Co-founder, Director of Customer Experience. And thanks for joining today's session. We're going to be talking about the Excel Parser. Things you can expect with this today's webinar is what is the Excel Parser and how does it work and when should I use it? So in this particular case, we kind of came up with this for really about budgets. And this is, when we say budgets, we don't mean the foundation budget where you're funding your grants, but more from a project perspective. So this would be a grantee, an applicant, someone who's filling out a form and is filling in a budget form. So maybe have several line items, different columns, maybe it's multi-year, and I need to get that information into the system. So budgets can be pretty complex. They can contain, several categories. You may have unique formulas and layouts. And while we can do a lot, these are actually very hard to recreate in SmartSimple, even using the advanced data tables that we have. So that's the button that you click and it brings up the window, and we have those kind of recreated all those nice budget forms. So we thought of, as things like that got more complex, then instead of trying to recreate the wheel, we developed a tool where you can actually just take an Excel file, Excel template, and upload the file, and it will read in the data into SmartSimple as fields. So it's not just an attachment. So you actually get the benefit of both, where you can have a complex Excel template, full of formulas and things like that. And then when you're uploaded into SmartSimple, you get the raw data still, and you get to report on it, search on it, and it becomes part of the platform as well. So some of the benefits of this is keeping all the calculations and formulas that you want, rather than recreating them. You can, Excel is a great tool for that. That was its purpose as a software. You can still get that standardized format. A lot of people are like, when they ask, well, in Excel, everyone can upload something different. And in the demo, I'll show you how you do it, but it's really using a standardized format. So you can still keep everybody's budgets the same and standardized for your needs. And like I said, all your data is still being stored in SmartSimple as fields. It's not just an attachment, so you get to take advantage of all the reporting and searching capability. And it actually makes it easier to report on than using the advanced data tables if you're not doing any sort of mapping or things of that nature. So today, just want to get right to it. It's kind of easier to show than it is to talk about. So let me log in here to my sample. And again, for these webinars, I'd like to give an introduction. It's not so much about, these aren't really training sessions. I don't mind answering some of the configuration, but it's more to show you what you can do with these tools and with these features. And if you think that something like this you can use within your organization, then please reach out to us, and then we can get into how you could set this up and configure it for your specific requirements. So let me go here. I'll pick one of these submitted applications. And in our demo system here, we have it's already pre-made, so save us a lot of steps. And what we've done here is have a budget tab. And it's a level 1 record. So what I was talking about of what we're replacing here is things like this. So this is a budget template. This is an advanced data table in SmartSimple. So it's quite nice. We can do, ad hoc rows, right? I can put I can do calculations, things of that nature. It's all possible through here, so, and it's not too bad. We can recreate a lot of things, but maybe you have more complex formulas or things that you want to run. An alternative is to handle it this way. So what we're going to do here is in our demonstration site, we actually have 2 files. One is a blank worksheet, which is an Excel template. And then we also have one that's filled in, that has some data in it, and just to show you how it'll work. So I've already gone ahead and I've got the files here. So our template is really just an empty Excel file that's specially formatted. Okay, so this would be, you'd want to use an actual Excel template, where fields are locked in and you can't edit or make changes. If I go into these areas, I can see here that I have, we've named them a particular thing rather than just saying cell A1 or 2, things like that. If I go into cell A3, we've called it starting salaries. If I go down to A16, it says starting equipment, and so on throughout my budget. So what we're actually doing is we're naming or using the parts of the Excel spreadsheet to then know how to read that into SmartSimple. So in here, we have, this is just a simple multiplication, but we're doing formulas. So how does this all work? So I'll show you the end result first. If I go here and I'm going to upload my file, I can go here, drag over my file. This is my pre-filled budget form. I'm going to load it into the system. You can see there, I have my uploaded file. But what it's done, and if I just save my record here, after just to refresh the screen, when I scroll down, we can see here that it actually read in the data. So we're displaying it here. So I have the information still in my Excel file. So I can always have access to the original file. You can even permission the folder so that, in this case, it's a demo system, so I can go ahead and delete. Maybe you want to lock that down so people can't delete that original budget they uploaded. And in here, it's read in the details that was filled in. So we have all this information here into SmartSimple. So if I, just to show you, if I open the filled in results, it would say here, I could add person 3, right? Split the difference here. We'll maybe say it at 30%, right? So there's my file. I can save that. Okay, I can close it. And if I re-upload it, I think I saved it. I hope. You guys can correct me after. We'll see if I did. I think I clicked save. I said to save, but I don't know if I clicked it. But there we go. Now I have my display. So it'll read in my budget forms all the time for me without worrying about it. The nice thing is it's creating records. So it's not just creating the file, it's creating budget line items as we would typically configure it. And here I can see when I click the budget tab on the left-hand side, it's actually brought in, there's my person 3 with the title, and it's brought in my records here. So the nice thing is I have all the data, okay? I'm not losing any of the reporting, searching capability. It's all being read in to the system. And now it's here. If I want to click into the record, we've mapped all the files to the appropriate or fields to the appropriate columns in the file. And we have all this information, and because they're just fields, they can be permissioned as normal. They can be searched as normal, included in reports. So it makes it much easier to report on the field than trying to, maybe navigate to specific cells in an advanced data table, for example. So that's how it actually all works. So how did we make that happen? It's not, there's more going on behind the scenes here than just being able to, upload the file. So really, it's almost the best way to describe it. And again, going into the config, I don't want to really, turn this into a training session like that. But it works very similar to how our word merges work, in that you map it field to field. So really, you're creating, if I go into the settings here, and I'll show you just for a second, kind of give you a peek at the, okay, so it really consists of 2 fields. I have my display field, which is just showing me the results of, displaying the results of the budget. But in the parser field, it's actually, it's just a file storage field. So it's a multi-file storage field that I've enabled down here in the options to enable the Excel parsing. Once we turn this on, You can see here what it means. Then we have a new box will appear, and that's this field mappings. Okay, so the area on the screen where you saw me with the hyperlinks to download the files, it's just the instructions, and we put links. We were keeping it in smart folders. If you're not using those, they're quite handy. You can keep documents online within the system. So we just we stored the blank one and the demo one with some sample data just in there, so people know how to get it. But and again, I don't want to scare anyone. There is a little bit of configuration to get this to work, but it's using standard. It's like a JSON kind of a format, and you're really just specifying, what are you creating? An activity. Should I create new activities? If there's new rows, yes. What kind of activity am I creating? It's a budget. It's in draft. And where do I start? So that was the purpose of the naming. So it says, okay, I'm going to go to sheet 1 and I'm going to read everything in. So it says, oh, where do I map this information? So we're taking on the left-hand side, we're referencing a field in SmartSimple, and on the right-hand side, we're referencing a cell on the or a column on the Excel spreadsheet. And we're doing this for all the data that we want to bring in. So we have, in this case, we have salaries, equipment, and other, and it's all mapped in here. Once you get the format down, it's fairly easy just to copy and paste. And then really what it turns into is an exercise of mapping a field to a particular column. And that's it. Once you upload the file, as you saw in the in my example here, it does all the work for you. It creates these budgets on the left-hand side. We had a display file to show the information on the screen, so you didn't have to open up the Excel file. Here's my record here, and really what we were doing in that code area was saying, how do I populate these fields? It says go to column 1, and when I type in cell, third column it goes here, fourth column goes here, etc. So that's the Excel parser in a nutshell. It's very elegant at the end. It's very easy to use. A couple of things we've seen in the real world, people using it in maybe areas with, maybe not the greatest internet. It's an alternative there. I can fill in my budget offline on an Excel sheet and then just upload it. It doesn't take much effort to upload a file. So that's handy. Some people have a lot of requirements in their Excel document with formulas, even formatting. It's not even just the formulas, it's just the formatting. Maybe I want to highlight a row. If my budget is over a certain value, maybe flag that cell in a different color. Maybe I have I want to work in multiple sheets. It's not just limited to one sheet. I could reference different sheets in the Excel file. So, you get to actually take advantage of all the nice things about Excel, but integrate it nicely with SmartSimple at the same time. So I'm sure this is going to, a lot of people maybe are thinking about how can I use this or what's the main thing. So maybe I'll stop at this stage, and it'll be a good time for some questions. It's fairly easy to, the demonstration isn't too long. It's you upload a file and it maps everything out. So it does take a little bit to configure. I will be fully transparent there, but the format is quite straightforward. And once you've done one, it's not too hard to pick up the pattern. Any questions, Sarah? Maybe we can jump in.
Yeah, for sure. Just before we get into the questions, we will be sending out a recording of the webinar within a week, just so everybody knows. But yeah, let's get into some questions.
Oh, and maybe one more thing too before. There will be, we're just working and finalizing a proper wiki article for this. This is fairly new. We've had it for a while, but we've been kind of refining it and putting it through a few use cases to make sure that we've kind of nailed down any issues. But in the coming weeks, please stay tuned, and we'll be having a full wiki article that you can kind of follow start to finish, much like you've seen in our, if you've ever seen the portal one, where you can kind of follow it through step by step, and it'll explain how to set it up. So, sorry, Sarah. Go ahead.
Yep. Do you have to build in the fields in the database that match the Excel?
You do, well, just for the ones that you want to bring in. So yes. So in this case, we have other fields there in the Excel file, but the only ones we need to make sure are there are the columns that we want to read in. but you can have more going on in the Excel spreadsheet. So in here, I can have additional columns. It doesn't matter. If I don't want these in SmartSimple, I don't need to include them. Like I said, you can have additional sheets that have other stuff going on, and it doesn't matter as well.
Great. Once a spreadsheet has been uploaded into, or has been loaded into SmartSimple, can calculations be performed on the uploaded data? For example, if we added a field for project budget as percentage of organization budget?
Mm-hmm. You can in here. So you'd have to run them in this record here. So now that it's data, I can do whatever I want with it. So I can actually run a calculation here. So the nice thing is with the Excel is you can do all those calculating there, and when it comes up, it's bringing in the raw information. So that budget was, I think it was just the percent times the salary. So we're seeing here in the field, we're not bringing in the formula, we're bringing in the end result. But now that it exists in SmartSimple, you can do whatever you want with the fields, put it in a template formula, reference it somewhere else, include it in a report, do calculations on it. Yeah, once it's in, it's treated like just like any other field in the system.
Can you have different templates for different applications?
Yes, and that's another nice thing too. Yeah, you can have as many different templates as you want, and present different templates on for different program types.
Can it read from multiple tabs in the XLS file?
Yes. So you can specify the different sheets you're referring to, and so if I just to show you quickly, I'll go here and back to my custom fields. So if I show you just quickly, and I know I did it fast, and again I'm trying hard not to wear my trainer hat today. In here, you reference the sheet. So I can say for sheet 1, pull this in, sheet 2, do something else. And if you rename the sheet, then it could be the name. You don't have to use the default. If I rename the sheet to something else, then I just reference whatever the sheet is called. The key thing too, maybe before other questions, is ideally you want this like in here, I can go in here and rename it. What you'd really want to do is actually lock your template down. So I think you want to protect the sheet. So ideally what you would do is once you have your XLS format, you'd want to protect the sheet and give password protected, so no one can actually edit it other than the cells you want them to input. So you leave this block, those columns editable, and then you'd kind of lock down any formulas and titles and stuff like that.
How does the parser handle variable number of rows?
It just does. And that's here. So we can populate either a fixed sheet or variable. So if we want to create rows as a record, I'd have true here. If I don't, I'd say false. And really what that's doing is allowing you to handle the dynamic rows. So every time I add a new row, what it's looking for is the next section. So here it says, that's why we've named this cell. We've said A3 is starting salaries. It's telling SmartSimple that this is where the salaries section starts. And then over here, it's saying this is the starting cell for the equipment. So if I had more staff than the 12 that was available, I can insert new rows, no big deal. Even though I've moved this down, it doesn't matter. It's not A19 from A14, it's starting equipment. So, if I wanted to, it doesn't matter. That's how we handle the dynamic. So it says, oh, okay, well, anything that starts from here, I don't care. You can add as many as you want until I see the next section. And then I know in here, now I'm adding equipment now. So that's kind of the mapping process there.
Great. If we are currently using advanced data tables in Switch, can we update the ADTs into Excel parsed fields for grants that are still active?
No. No, unless they were, unless you're already doing, we have the ability to, if you're using a dynamic, again, to reference the dynamic question. So in an advanced data table like this, if you have a dynamic section, right, where people can add, we have the ability to do exactly what we're doing with the Excel. We kind of had it before we did the Excel, but you can map these to level 2s, let's say in my case. I'm on the level 1. I could map these dynamic rows to level 2s. If that's enabled already, then it would be plausible, I think, because you already have the budget line items that can map back up into the grant. But again, I think it would be better if you are going to do the switch. I think you'd probably, my recommendation would be to do kind of a hard stop-start, maybe for the next cycle or something like that. And you can have them special for programs and whatever. So maybe start fresh for a new grant cycle using the new format. And that's true for any change in SmartSimple. It's always from a change perspective, it's always best not to try to do two things in the same time. Just finish the old way, and then if you want to improve or make changes to how you're handling things, then you're best to start clean in a new program or a new cycle.
Great. This question goes back to when you were demoing it. When you added an item, it looks like there are now duplicates displayed.
Oh, yeah, that's just our field here. I think I was just a little hasty in the demo. It wasn't refreshing to pull away the old ones, but you'll see in the it was correct in the budget line items. It was just my display field. I configured it wrong. I apologize. Good catch though. I'll take responsibility for that.
Yeah. All good. If the applicant adds lines to the Excel spreadsheet, does that automatically add fields in the application to map to? For example, how does the system know how many personal or pieces of equipment will need to be in the budget, or is there a limit?
Yeah, so the pieces that are, no, you have to have the fields. So the columns have to be fixed. Okay, so whatever you have in the Excel, they can't add a new column. So I can't here as the person, like the grantee, I can't go here and say new column and add my own new column and then start putting values in. What is locked down has to be the structure, so the columns, right, and the tabs. So A through E, that's stuck. They can't change that. But we already can accept any dynamically. We can go as many rows as we want. That's just the way it's designed. But the columns have to be fixed. You can't you can't have the user add new columns to the spreadsheet.
Do you have to avoid special characters in the column names?
No.
Is it possible to not display null rows or sections, or will they be blank?
Yeah, blank ones just won't be imported.
Okay.
If that's the question. Yeah, you don't have to. I mean, I think it's just to make it easy. We made it in the spreadsheet. We just, kind of put a section here so it's obvious to add. But yeah, you don't need to have, if your question was more of, you don't need to have that space there. If people are comfortable to add a new row, then they can do so. But I think it's just a design of a template to make it obvious that people know, oh, I can add more than, whatever.
Sorry, so they added, I think of a general purpose template where grantee may or may not need an equipment section, for example. Mm-hmm. If not, does this mean that we need a separate budget Excel files for different scenarios?
Yeah, so or it would be like this where it would just be blank. So you can have the section there in the standard template, and then just know that it won't be filled in every time. Or yeah, if you don't want to see it, then you can have a different budget based on different sections. How does it display in the PDF? It'll display just like the question was, how does the data display in a PDF, a web page, like an application summary? It could display just like we've designed the table. You can have it present like this, right? If that's easier, or you can have the fields display, but maybe you want to pull out a specific field and say put it here, because once it's parsed, it's in the field, so I can actually reference the field in the PDF, or I can present like you're seeing here. In that same view we created on the screen, you can have that pop up in a web page view as well. So the question is, can the parser be used to update records? So you can if you're using the same sheet. So what I did there, where you saw someone caught that it kind of doubled up my rows, it would actually update. If it's an existing line item like person 3, I could go in, change the salary, re-upload it, and it will update my person 3 again. And we have someone's asking about a tutorial, the Excel spreadsheet, how to format it in a wiki. That's soon to come. We just wanted to announce it through the webinar first. Do we need to create a custom field for each column? We do. So you do have to have the fields in SmartSimple existing prior. Yeah, do you have to have add this to a pre-existing application? You can add this. There was someone who asked, can we add this to a pre-existing application? I think there was another question like that. You can. Again, I would just recommend if you're using budgets in some other format, then I would probably recommend, finishing off that grant cycle and then going in from there. Does the Excel parser have to create a new activity? Can it just be used to fill in level 1 fields? No, it is. It needs to. It has to have that relationship of creating records underneath. So it can't just live in the level 1. You would need to create fields that map to a particular level 2 in this case. Excel parser, it's just a field. So it's in the, I'll show you again where you can activate it if you guys want to practice. So if you go into the custom fields, and it's available on any file upload field. So a multi-file storage upload field, in the settings for that field, it's just a matter of enabling, it's a toggle, and it says here, enable Excel parsing, and that will enable this box up here that says field mappings, and that's where you handle the fields. Can the Excel parser pull images? No, we can't populate images. It's just text, so just data. So images can't be brought in through the parser, just values, text values. We had a question, yeah, multi-tab Excel workbooks. That is good, it can support that. And another question is, does this work for level 2 records? It does. So you can go level 1 to level 2 or level 2 to level 3. It's supported on both. So that's available. For a template where sheet 1 is a summary of the budget and each different sheet contains different line items, should I configure different level 2 type for each sheet? Good question. You can. I don't know if there's a best practice there, but I know what some people have been doing. I think we have use cases for both. It doesn't really matter. It's just more how you want to handle the line item. So if, I think if you wanted to say, I know some people were doing things like Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 as tabs in the Excel sheet, and they were differentiating that by different activity types. But again, I guess you'd have to look at the overall config of the system and what they're trying to do. Again, the parser doesn't care. It could reference different sheets, and you could create different level 2 types for each. Again, I'd have to defer to what you were doing in the system, but it is supported. Is there a reverse parser that can fill an Excel template using SmartSimple fields? There is already. Actually, any list view that you have that you export to an Excel sheet or report, it doesn't have to. If you're using it already, you'll notice that the system generates a brand new Excel sheet and just populates it. But you can populate pre-existing templates from a list. However, it's not. It's gonna put the whole list into an area of the sheet. It's not as precise as exporting, put this field into cell A4 kind of a thing, and it'll just put the block of exported rows into a sheet. But you can, if you've used the export feature on a list view, you don't need to just export it into a blank sheet. You can populate a template. Number of columns, no, as long as there was a question of how many columns will the parser support. I wouldn't go overboard. You remember, each column is a field, so you'll need to have the same amount of fields as you do columns to read it in. but there is no hard limit that we've set to date. Again, just with anything, the more fields you add and the more rows you add, you could have a performance issue when you import the file or when it's processing. So just always be aware of that when adding new items. Question is, will we help configure the Excel template? We will. Most of the time, again, depending on the complexity, may be an RFS kind of work if you're getting into complex stuff. But yeah, if you have some questions on the syntax and things like that, we're more than happy to help you out. So another question is, can it be used to update a budget record instead of creating? It can, but again, you're going to it needs to find a match. So you probably want to use it to create the first instance, the first record, and then you can use that same existing spreadsheet that if I have locally, again, as long as I keep having it there, will it work? If you add a new line item, then it's fine. Thanks, Lisa. Got some comments there. I'm seeing from back in our beta times. So yeah, we've made some improvements to how it works. And in terms of reporting, again, it's just how do you do reports? It would be the same as any other reports. You can use a report tool. You can go to a list view. You can reference a specific field. So if I was searching, sorry, that would be my activities. I can go here. I can actually see, right? Because it's a field now, I can actually go to budget and I could look at all those budget records and I could actually say, I want to search that staff title, contains person, I think I put a space, did I? Nope, maybe not. But you can search those fields here and see what it's, the data that it has in the system, right? So here's the budgets. They're in here. So it's all available to you for searching, both in list view and in the report builder. Someone's asking, can we share the sample spreadsheet and code used today? That's a great suggestion. Yeah, maybe along with the video, those intents, we can send off a sample. And again, in the wiki, we'll definitely include samples, sample template and sample code to be used as well when you're practicing. Does the applicant have to delete an old upload? No. With the files, yeah, excellent. Sorry, I'm just reading your question at the same time as answering. So the question is, does an applicant have to delete an old upload or can you limit the upload? So there's a couple of ways to do it. You can either enable or disable the deleting and kind of version the files. So it's just looking for a file. It doesn't care. It'll re-upload it. If it's the same name, it treats it as the same. Or you can limit it to one file upload at the same time, so it's always going to be replaced, right? Depends on your practice. Some people want to see the history of the budget as well in the spreadsheet. So they want to see, oh, I uploaded 5 times, I made 5 revisions. It depends on your business process there, but either is acceptable. And a custom field for each column is the question before having the Excel parser. Yes, so you need a custom field for each column that you want to import. So you can ignore the column, like you don't have to have the column there if it's only to live in the spreadsheet. But if you want the data in SmartSimple, then you do have to have a custom field for it. Tutorial on the format of Excel Wiki, that is to come. We wanted to do the webinar and kind of show how it works first, get some feedback. But the Wiki article for this is in progress. I'll look for it in the coming weeks. Yep, another question on updating the records. They can. So again, it can update the existing records as long as they exist there first. Will the creation of the level 2 line item trigger template formulas and workflows? Yeah, so it will trigger. It'll operate just like other records. I don't believe the workflows will necessarily trigger. That's a good question. Mariana's stumping me today. I'd have to check. I'm not 100% sure on the formulas and workflow. So template formulas, oh, you do mention trigger template formulas. So I just have to confirm if it will trigger off trigger-based formulas or workflows. That I'm not 100% sure, but I can look into that for you. Is it possible to not display null row section will be blank? Yeah, so we don't, if it's a null, I think I answered that. If it's a null or a blank section or row in the in the budget, then it doesn't, it won't be pulled in. But if you don't want whole sections to appear, then you're best making a new template for those to handle. That, I believe, is all the questions. I apologize, guys. We've had some connectivity issues. Anything else there?
No, just if anybody does have any follow-up questions, please feel free to email us at businesssolutions@smartsimple.com. We're happy to hear from you. And like we said earlier, there will be a recording of the webinar sent out within a week. So we hope you have a great rest of your day.
All right, thanks, everybody.